Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Are we jumping?
We've jumped. Take your last warm-up sip.
I know. I'm not at the bottom of my cup yet.
It's weird. It's really weird to be talking about movies in the morning.
Yes, it's weird, but it feels so right.
So we got an iTunes comment, and we got it a while ago, but I don't think we've read it. Have we read this one?
I think there were two or so that we hadn't read yet.
Well, the one that I was looking at, which apparently 1 out of 1 listener found helpful, actually said that our conversations are thoughtful and funny and, wait for it, rambling in a good way.
Yes, excellent.
I don't know if there's a higher praise. That is very kind of them to say, and they gave us a 5-star review, and that's what I want to say. People out there, good morning. If you're listening to the show, do us a favor. Head over to iTunes. Log in. Do a search for movies we like. Eventually, you'll find it. And leave us that 5-star review. It really helps, and these comments are kind comments, even comments about how we are rambling are helpful.
Yes.
Very kind.
We love all those comments. We
deeply appreciate that.
And we love rambling.
Well, and iTunes has screwed us up. iTunes has changed everything. It used to be that you could search for Rash Pixel and see all the Rash Pixel shows. That is gone. You can't do that anymore. They've just this last week, they've monkeyed everything up. They totally pooped in my lemonade. And so now you can't just search for, the network. And when you search for movies we like, without those reviews, without those clicks, it doesn't surface. And it used to, we used to come up, because we were brand new, we used to come up in the top 6, and now we've fallen to like number 8. So we don't come up in that very first thing. So we need those reviews to help us stay up there and help other people discover the show.
Definitely.
So that is very helpful to do that. We're also on Stitcher Smart Radio, smart way to do online radio. And if you, like Andy Nelson, are a fan of online radio, you need to be using Stitcher. Is that still working for you?
It is. I love it. Stitcher's fantastic. And they're good with their recommendations too. I found some new shows from the ones they recommend to me.
That's awesome. I'm still very much a Downcast user. I love Downcast, but just yesterday, Apple launched the podcast app. They've separated podcasts and made it its own app that you can now download. So if you are an iPhone or iOS user and you like to listen to your podcast while watching an animated reel-to-reel tape on your device, you can do that now too. And it just plugs into the iTunes things. But it's a separate app for managing podcasts that honestly seems a little half-baked to me, but it's another way to do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we definitely appreciate that. Please join and share the love. That's all I've got, except for where can people find you? This is so weird doing this. I'm doing this all out of order. Because it's morning.
We still love you. People can find me at Soda Creek Film on Twitter or on Facebook at Soda Creek Film, and at
rashpixel.tv. And I'm at Pete Wright on the Twitter, and you can find me at rashpixel.tv, or you can find all of our shows, the latest episodes of all of our shows on our Facebook page, facebook.com/rashpixel, or on Google+. Just do a search for Rashpixel, and you'll find the page there if you are a Google+ user. And don't forget to check out our late night Lonely Hearts Movies We Like Movie Clutch, our very first hangout we did 2 weeks ago with the lovely and talented guests, Chad Stoops and
Mike Evans.
It was a good conversation. What fun doing those hangouts. I can't wait for another big movie to come out because I want to do that again.
Yeah, I know. I think we'll have something big to talk about in July.
Indeed. So what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Up in the Air. And we're not talking about the 1940s Howard Brotherton Up in the Air. No. We're continuing our Jason Reitman series and talking about Up in the Air, the 2009 George Clooney film.
George Clooney and Sam Elliott. This was a Sam Elliott vehicle.
That's right.
So to speak.
So maybe it's a Sam Elliott series.
This is the Sam Elliott series, exactly. This is the surly old man series. So, what do we like about this movie?
This is a really great film. It's just a fascinating look at kind of our times, the modern times, and how
our society is run by these, not run, but these companies out there and all these corporations that are hit by hard times with the economy are downsizing and firing people, and we have this man who goes out and essentially is a hired gun for these companies to fire their employees for them because they're too chicken to do it themselves. And he himself has created this lifestyle where he's essentially downsized everything out of his own life to a point that, he's doing these presentations at hotels and eventually at a Tony Robbins-like conference where it's all about, emptying out your backpack and getting rid of everything in your life, being, free to and unburdened, as it were. And, it's a really fascinating look at the modern mentality that people had with our economy and how to handle things, and at the same time, love and relationships and a meaningful existence.
This movie is interesting. I think last week we did Thank You for Smoking. Mm-hmm. And that movie where, we talked, there are some really striking parallels, striking and strikingly obvious, right? First of all, you have this main character in Aaron Eckhart and George Clooney that are both really charming dudes.
Exactly.
Very charming characters. They are characters, both of whom you are drawn to love in some way, even though you do not like them.
Right.
Because of what they do. Right. They do their jobs not great. It's promoting the cigarette industry and firing people. It's not something that you're naturally drawn to love, but the characters are so charming you have to love them in some way.
Yeah.
But Thank You for Smoking ended up being a movie that was not about smoking at all, right? His job ended up being sort of secondary to the lessons that were learned in the film.
Right.
This movie, his job is really central to the lessons we learn in the film.
Oh, 100%.
Which I think it sort of turns that model on its ear, because we are learning through his lessons, not the lessons specifically that are learned by the characters in orbit of him.
Well, I think actually in this film, what's interesting is we're really learning from everybody.
Well, they're different. They're different lessons, though. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the central arc really of Thank You for Smoking ends up being the one where we learn from the lessons taught by his child.
Yeah,
and this movie, Natalie Keener has a lesson to learn. Vera Farmiga, how do you even say it? Farmiga. Vera Farmiga.
Yeah.
I prefer Farmiga.
I hear she does too, but only when you say.
I'm gonna call her later and confirm that. And so, but there, this movie ends up being so much about loyalty, and his job is so much about defiling the loyalty of others, which is fascinating.
Yeah,
and
that's an interesting way to
heartbreaking.
Put it. Yeah.
But what's so interesting about that, right? I don't know. This is where I'm rambling. So bear with me. Yeah. But this movie, there's a lot going on in this movie. So the opening sequences of the movie, and I think this is the movie is from a just editorially as an exercise in efficiency. This is another one of those films where the amount of story that they tell in very short clips is wonderful. I mean, watching him prepare and disassemble and reassemble his kit as he's going through security in the airport is just a work of art. And so this movie is so much about celebrating that efficiency and the collection of miles and the collection of cards of affinity programs. And all of these things are bought loyalties, right?
I mean, the reason he is collecting miles is because he's spending so much money, his company is spending so much money on his behalf to allow him to collect those miles. It's bought loyalty. He is an example of purchased loyalty. And all of the people that he is defiling everywhere he goes he's defiling earned loyalty. And I think that is the cultural message. These are people who have, in their own words, have spent years devoted to this company and this mission, and he is letting them go. They don't even have the courtesy to do it themselves. They have to hire it out and set ablaze what they have devoted of their hearts and souls, not purchased.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to put it. It's a very honest portrayal of what is happening to people, and these loyalties that are getting crushed. It's very it makes for a much more raw story, and you hear this honest telling from real people who had actually been fired.
Well, talk about that, because economy. I think that's a really interesting way they did that. How do you talk about what they did and what you think about how it worked out?
I think what Jason Reitman did in the casting process of this, he really wanted to make it feel real, and he felt that by casting a bunch of actors to play all of these people getting fired, that in some sense he was not it wasn't paying enough respect to all the people who really actually had gotten fired. And he felt that, he'd never be able to capture the true, honest emotions that these people had felt when they were let go from their companies during this most recent economic downturn that we had. Obviously, in the film, there are a few actors who are in the film playing some people for the bigger roles, like Zach Galifianakis and J.K. Simmons, but everybody else is a real person. And Jason Reitman, what he did, they shot in the bulk of this film in St. Louis. They did a casting call, and they made it seem like they were going to be doing a documentary about the economy and all of this, and they saw people who had been let go from their companies to talk about what it's done to them and all of this stuff. And then they found the people who just had really strong emotions and who could really bring that to the table, and they ended up casting those people as all the people getting fired in this film, and really let those people, essentially what he said to them is, if you could say what you really wanted to say when you were let go, that's what we want to hear. And so what these people are saying, it's really their own words. And I think what it does is it brings this level of additional honesty to the film, because we're hearing from real people really affected by the economy. And it really makes it very strong, I feel. I have read some reviews where people have said that they felt it was using these people and using their situations to in the benefit of the film. I don't buy that. I think these people knew what was happening.
Well, that's the part I was unclear on. Did they know? Because what I had read was that he set them up as a documentary, that they were going to film a documentary, and but it was not clear to me at what point, if ever, they were made aware that this was for a feature film.
Well, the reason that he pitched it as a documentary is because, it's a George Clooney movie, and he didn't want these people feeling like they were coming in and doing this because they were going to be part of, George Clooney, or they were going to get to meet him or create these false performances because they felt they were acting now rather than doing documentary work.
Well,
right?
And because specifically he didn't want actors.
Right, exactly.
You tell people it's a casting call, a bunch of actors show up.
Yeah. So, I mean, he did tell them it wasn't in the casting process, but, once they had made their selects as far as which ones they wanted to use, obviously they talked to those people and told them more about it. And those people, were happy to be a part of it. And I don't think that it was a false, a false casting process, in that, these people knew they were going to be in a project, and they did find out what that project was, and they very easily could have said, you know what, that sounds great, but I don't feel like my story is appropriate for your film. They could have said that if they just didn't feel it was right. And these people, it's getting their story out there. And regardless of whether it's in a documentary or if it's up in the air, it's an opportunity for these people to talk about what they went through and how it's changed their lives. And I think there's no reason that honesty has changed because of the nature of what the end result is. I don't think so.
Well, I first of all, I think if I was recently laid off and I was informed that I would be able to tell my story and do it in a feature film for scale, I would be okay with that.
Sure.
I'm not saying what these other people were going through, but I think there is something about getting any job that is paid in a time when you need it is probably pretty good. But I think one of the things that sort of that you're saying there is that their individual message then is sort of at the core of the dramatic arc of the film, and so is it, is their message that important to the film, or is it ancillary to the story of the film?
I think it's 100% important to the story. This is a story, like you were saying, about loyalties and betrayals and these people. We're looking at the perspective of this story from both sides of that issue of how the problems of downsizing are affecting people. We're looking at that objectively and subjectively, and subjectively through Ryan Bingham and his journey through the course of the film, but objectively also we're looking at it from outside at these people that he's firing. Opportunity to see from his perspective of how this happens and what it means to him, which is nothing. It's his job, right? But we're also getting a very real and raw look at what it means to these people and how hard it is to go through. And I think it's an important thing in a film like this. I feel like it's almost essential to have that in it, because it really, this is a story about people getting fired, and without real stories of people getting fired, I mean, we could cast it all with Zach Galifianakis and J.K. Simmons and other people, but we're not going to ever really feel like it was something that really happened to somebody.
Right.
And it to a certain extent, it diminishes it a little bit.
The gentleman with the lip quiver is possibly the best performance in the film. It's really moving when you watch him tell his sort of emotional story, and the way it comes around at the end. It's a funny way this movie comes together, because we're introduced to these people at the beginning, and they're talking about their rage and their feeling of betrayal, and then we watch the film. We get to see the film, and we see all these actors kind of going about their business and demonstrating the sense of loyalty and demonstrating, what it means to defile that loyalty. And then at the end, we see these characters come back around saying, how they were able to get through it. And in a sense, they are the punchline to this, hour and 40-minute whatever joke. And it brings it all back to center. And we realize that, that the lesson to be learned here is that it doesn't really matter what your job is. It doesn't really matter where you put your time during the day. There are people that are we are people of people, we are people of networks, we are people of family, and that is what makes us stronger. I wonder, again, back to Thank You for Smoking, where we saw, Aaron Eckhart's character at the end, and I made this comment that, he was a character that you didn't actually see learn, or that his lesson, the lesson you wanted him to learn, may not have been the lesson that he ended up learning. And at the end of this movie, you feel sort of, as charming as George Clooney's character is, as much as you end up loving him on some level, maybe even having sort of pity for him, the result ends up being something that, he's back on a plane, and that sense you want so much for him to be redeemed in some way, but for him, does that necessarily mean that redemption isn't on a plane?
Well, exactly. I think this is a story where we're watching, unlike Thank You for Smoking, where I don't feel our protagonist is the character who changes in the film. This is a story where Ryan Bingham, George Clooney's character, does change over the course of the film. He learns from Natalie about what a relationship means, right? She's very, in a certain extent, naive as to what relationships are, but through that, he ends up seeing through to it and feeling that connection, particularly because he is having this kind of whimsical fling with Alex, Vera Farmiga's character, all over the country wherever they happen to stop, and you see that connection developing particularly and very beautifully at Ryan's sister's wedding. And so he actually does change and start realizing that having an empty backpack is not very meaningful. And, you get that pretty blatantly when he walks out of that presentation that he's giving about his empty backpack lifestyle. And he realizes that he wants to have a full backpack. And so he's a character who actually does make this change from living this lifestyle of empty backpack equals a great life to I want a full backpack, only to have that desire taken away from him, right? He finally wants to be grounded. He wants to be in a relationship, and he makes a change in his life and ends up without it because Alex, he finds out, spoiler alert, is married and has a happy life of her own, and his boss decides to cancel this program that was going to keep him at home, and he ends up back in the air, exactly what he initially wanted, but now by the end of the film, it's not what he wants. It's a really interesting story because it turns it into a personal tragedy for him.
Okay. All right. I walked away with it with a little bit of a different take, and I like the way you put it better than the way I saw it. For me, it was, he then experiences that same betrayal, right? Where he is, on a very personal level, where that earned loyalty turns out to have been a misperception, right? He expected that he would have some earned loyalty with Alex. She betrayed him by demonstrating that she had been lying to him and having a family. And, he ends up going back into this space, the only space that he knew as comfortable, which he had been selling us the virtues of, his home being the airport, being air travel, being at the Admiral's Club throughout the entire film. And then he ends up back, on the wingtip. And so, I had a hard time not feeling a little bit like he learned that lesson and then was betrayed, and through that betrayal ended up reverting back to these old sort of nasty habits, where we get to watch Alex go forth and learn nothing. And watch Natalie go forth and, she had, interestingly, a little bit more complex kind of a character discovery. And so, who's left to learn anything but us? Certainly not Jason Bateman.
Certainly not. Certainly not. It
So-
actually is a very interesting ending because there are multiple ways to interpret it. And I agree that that's one way you can interpret it. I've also heard, and I think in my head I can buy this one as well, where Natalie said, because he's collecting miles,
Right.
with no intention of doing anything other than just, collect him. As he says, the number is the goal.
Right.
It's not actually doing something with them.
Until he gets on the phone and wants to transfer 1,000,000 miles to his sister and brother-in-law.
Right. And that's because he's kind of, that's after the Alex incident, and he's learned and he's started making that change and wants to have those relationships and finding ways to make those connections. But that's something else that another interpretation of the ending is, because Natalie says, if I had that many miles, I would just go to an airport, pick a place and go.
Yeah.
And, it's very easy to interpret that when he's standing there, in front of the board, looking at all the flights, that's exactly what he's doing. He's now decided, you know what, I'm just going to go. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do something. And I am going to have this adventure. And that is his growth. Now, there's a shot at the end that's kind of a pretty deliberate close-up that Jason Reitman does, and of George Clooney as he's standing there. We see his hand let go of his suitcase. So I'm not sure if he's letting go of his backpack because of what his backpack has always represented, and he wants those connections now, not an empty backpack. And that's how I interpreted it, which is why I see it the way that I see it, which is much more tragic than, I guess, the other two options. So,
well, I actually not sure that I would characterize your view as tragic of it. It actually makes me, it's even more of a redemption story. It's that, tragic insofar as he's back on the plane, but that he's not, he's absolutely not the guy that he was before, or he has taken enough from his experiences over the past months to have a new understanding about himself and about his place in the world and his position of power in the world.
Well, and you're right in that. I agree that he does make that change, and good for him. I now see him going places and finding those connections that he's up to this point been shunning. However, it's not shown in the film, and so within the context of the film itself, I think it's a little more of a tragedy because he's kind of left, stuck back on the road when he now just wants to be, in a comfortable homemaker situation with Alex or something.
Well, and you get to the central complication of this discussion. These things are not shown; they're not illustrated in the film in a way that is, I don't know, obvious, right? And so, and I have never read the book. Right, I have the book. I fell in love with the movie and downloaded the book, and I have not read it. I didn't fall in love with it enough, apparently, and so I'm not sure what the sort of transition from book to film through the adaptation process looked like. But I wonder what your take is on that question. Is it okay that Reitman decided not to illustrate in a more obvious fashion the growth and transformation of this character?
I think so. Because we're seeing this story from so many points of view. We've got Ryan Bingham's point of view, and he ends up having this catharsis that leads him to making this change that, like I said, ends up being kind of tragic because he ends up back on the road. But at the same time, we're also getting that viewpoint from all of these people who've been fired, that we've been seeing getting fired over the course of the film, and hearing their heartbreak and hearing how hard it is for them and how are they going to say this to their children and all this sort of stuff, only to see them at the end talking about what got them through this was their relationships, was their family, was their friends, was all the people in their life, all the connections that matter. And while Ryan's story ends up a little more on the tragic side, we're still seeing a positive change, and we're seeing the results of what having that sort of relationship means. And we do see it from Ryan, or we do see that change in Ryan. And yes, eventually he may get to a point where he does meet somebody and he does settle down and he changes careers, and who knows where the story goes from here. But at least he's made a start, right? At least he's made that change. And I mean, even just representative in the miles he gives to his sister and her new husband, and the letter that he writes, the job reference letter.
I was just gonna say the letter. I think the letter goes back to that, also that sort of new awareness of Ryan Bingham's sense of power in the universe, that he can use his collections for good, and his influence for good, and not for that sort of more that self-centered kind of purpose. Mm-hmm. Talk about a little bit about the visuals of the film. I think there's what's happening on the ground, and there's what's happening in the air, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on how Reitman sort of put that together.
Well, and I would go so far as to say it's not just what's on the ground and what's on the air, but what's on the ground and what's in the traveling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because I think what is an amazing bit of this film is how sexy traveling is, and how amazingly Jason Reitman, paired with his team, his cinematographer Eric Steelberg, and his production design team and everybody, how just sexy and beautiful they make this idea of George Clooney's lifestyle at the beginning of this film. I mean, I wanted to go do this job. I mean, I want it just like, this zip zap airport lifestyle, where you're just flying, you have no cares in the world,
you're exceptionally good at flying.
Yeah, I mean, it's
know to only follow the Asians.
Exactly.
Which is like, so horrible. But you never, I don't know about that you only follow, but you never follow a family. I'm a family. You don't follow me. You don't want to be behind me.
Yeah, exactly. That's true for both of us. Stay away.
Stay away from us if you want to get through together.
See that stroller? Go to a different aisle. So I mean, but all of that is done just so beautifully, where it makes you realize how appealing this can be, and he sells it so well. His little monologue at the beginning about it is just, man, do I love this? It's a great, amazing way that they paint it, and I think it's stunning, and I think it's very intentional. And I should also point out the editing. Dana Glauberman did the editing on this and really cut it together in a short amount of time. I understand, short post-production time on this film. Just cut it together in a way that was just rock solid, and it just, all of that stuff is gorgeous. Then you get to the realities of all of the firing and all of these places where people are getting laid off, and it's just you see these realities. You see these quite often they're in gloomy environments, right? They go to Detroit, they go to Milwaukee, and you just see these gray, snowy landscapes that just don't feel welcoming, and it feels worn, it feels tired, it feels like it's already been through the ringer.
Right.
And then you go inside and you see these people, you see these empty, like vast offices that are empty, except random chairs rolling around.
That was the one that was really touching to me, is when there are just no chairs anymore, no cubicles anymore.
Yeah, and the secretary's just sitting there at her desk. You can tell she's been crying, and it's
when
rough.
He's there, they're there to fire everyone else.
Yeah.
There's no one left to go.
So it's a very smart way to paint these two worlds, and to give us a visual cue as to how all of this ties together. Very good job. It's actually, it goes all the way back to the script. There's a line in the script which is a fantastic script, and it's available many places online. So I definitely recommend reading it. But this is early on when Ryan is going through. Let me just read this little excerpt here. Ryan skips the long lines and steps directly into the Advantage Executive Platinum line. Glorious close-up of Ryan's Advantage Executive Platinum card sliding through the automated machine. Were it any sexier, we'd hear a moan. Maybe we even do. Right out of the script. I mean, I don't know if that sort of language was in the book, but man, does that not paint a picture of how attractive this lifestyle is?
Absolutely. Well, there is something when he walks through the beauty of sort of the images that are created is the melding of Clooney's own performance in the airports, right? Whenever we see him moving, he's swiping, he's zipping, or he's taking the longest, most liberated strides of anyone you have seen not in an open field. You know, I mean, you see the sense of ownership of the airport that comes together in his place in the machine of the airport, and that is the sort of the perfect tableau that we get of the visuals in this airport. That he is as much a piece of it as the luggage, as the TSA machines, as the every bit of it, and as the lines that are constantly contrast with this sort of freedom that he experiences on the red carpet, and only once do we hear somebody actually grumble. That he just gets to cut in line, and his response is to hand them a brochure and sell them the benefits of what he's done, which is perfect. I mean, it feels perfect because you know what it feels like to be mad when somebody cuts, and this movie is a lot about cutting.
Yeah,
there's just a lot about cutting in this film. I love the in-air stuff.
Yeah,
and there is, I think, a contrast between the in-air stuff at the beginning, which has that kind of Soderbergh kind of Ocean's 11 sort of throwback. It's very vintage, the way that is put together, with the way they partition the screens, and they have lots of motions and Mondrian shapes of the video, various video elements, but they're all looking down with the exception of the very first. The credits open with some of the crispest clouds that you can see, right? And then we start looking down, and everything is looking down.
Yeah.
From then on out, we're looking at the cities that we're about to invade,
right?
And hurt in some way because of his role. And it goes through the movie looking down until the very end. And this gets back to what you were saying a little bit earlier about this actually being something of a it's a tragedy and a redemption story. And we're left with his final monologue looking out.
Yeah.
And it's again, the clouds aren't so crisp anymore. They're kind of fuzzy and foggy. And you are left with this feeling of, maybe this feels a little bit more optimistic than I thought.
Yeah.
And maybe the damage that his role insinuates on the world isn't is one that he's going to be able to figure out.
Yeah,
I love the way he used the visuals there. The act of air travel, the verb of air travel.
Yeah, it is beautifully done, and actually you I think really pinned that really nicely. I think that is exactly how Jason Reitman was intending it, and it's done so nicely. And that last shot with that last little speech. About the blinking light on the end of the wing, and we're just looking at this blanket of clouds, and there's no connection anymore to the land. I mean, it's a very beautiful image, and I think it could be he's now looking past what his career is, right? He's no longer looking down at the people he's going to be taking out, but he's looking at finding another opportunity.
That there is still journey ahead of him.
Yeah. Even if he doesn't know what that journey is.
Right.
Obviously, he has left this film in a place where he's not happy anymore. Alex, really slammed things down on him with the realities of their lifestyle. And I mean, it's exactly the lifestyle that they set up together. It's just he happened to change because of it. But, you know, he's very bluntly faced with the realities of what that lifestyle really means. And then now he's saying, you know what, I think maybe I do want something more.
This movie was received well critically.
Very well. Very well, yeah.
You want to talk about awards? Didn't win any Oscars.
It
nominated a bunch, but didn't walk home with any little gold men.
No, but it got a good number of nominations.
Mm-hmm.
It got Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay by Jason Reitman and Sheldon Turner, who actually was originally brought on to write the script before the Reitmans had purchased the rights to it. And Jason actually didn't write with Sheldon Turner. He wrote his own draft, and when the WGA doled out the credits, it was the two of them who were credited. And I understand they're both very fine with that. And then it was nominated for Best Actor for George Clooney, Best Actress for Vera Farmiga, and Best Supporting Actress for Anna Kendrick. Yeah, they got some great nominations, and it unfortunately didn't win any, which is sad, but it got a lot of other awards. I mean, it was named, I believe the Writers Guild gave them the Best Adapted Screenplay Award.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it was at the National Board of Review won everything that it was nominated for. So including best film of the year.
You know, while we're not on the subject of Vera Farmiga,
I hear her cooing when you say that.
Seriously, I watched this movie and okay, so I see Clooney in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I can compare him to, you know, pretty much any other Clooney movie. You know, and Aaron Eckhart, and there's sort of that charming debonair character, right? There's that leading man kind of character, and I can parallel him with others. Mm-hmm. I look at Natalie Keener's character. I can parallel her with others. You know, I'm talking about actually, you know, their performances in this movie too. You know, and I can Jason Bateman. You know, we can parallel his performance as the sort of the anti-hero, kind of representative of corporate, you know, greed. Mm-hmm. The way Vera Farmiga plays this character, to me, is addicting.
Yeah.
I have a hard time finding a parallel to her in film. Am I completely out of line? Am I just not thinking creatively enough?
Well, it's the thing with George Clooney is he hasn't been paired with many women who have carried their weight as strongly as Vera Farmiga does. I think I saw this. I saw this in a couple reviews where, oddly enough, two completely opposite reviews. It was like New York Times and the Christian Science Monitor. I think they both said that not since Out of Sight, paired with Jennifer Lopez, has George Clooney had a woman. Has he been paired with an actress that he's that has really held up her own with George Clooney? And I think that's probably true, because I mean, I thought Jennifer Lopez was fantastic in Out of Sight.
She was fantastic, and that's a movie we need to do. I love that movie, but Jennifer Lopez's power in that movie comes from a badge and a gun. You know,
I think to a very large extent. I mean, I think you know, Jenny from the Block has her own power, or from the Bronx or wherever.
I think it was The Block, but it's Block with only a C.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's a different kind of power. That was a you know, the police versus gangster kind of power relationship. And the way Vera plays this power relationship is such a straight demonstration of strength in the face of Clooney's charm, that it's just magnetic. And I watch those scenes with her, and I'm mesmerized by her performance of this character. I can't think of many characters like this that are played so strong. And I wonder, I wonder the level of intention behind. Well, obviously it was an intended performance, but it's most of the time you see these supporting actress characters, they are ornaments. They're ornaments to the overall sort of dramatic arc of the film, and I think the way she plays this, she takes such ownership of this piece. I think it's a real testament to letting her as an actress, really shine in this character. It was terrific.
Definitely. I mean, it was a outstanding performance from someone who hasn't been seen nearly enough.
Not enough.
Yeah, and I misspoke earlier when I said she was nominated for Best Actress. It was actually Best Supporting Actress, which just goes to show how prevalent her role in the film seems to be. I mean, she probably has as much screen time as Hannibal Lecter, who did
talk
Anthony
about
Hopkins
an
did win an
ownership
Oscar for Best Actor for that, not Best Supporting Actor. I think that she very easily could have been called the Best Actress for this film rather than Best Supporting Actress. But you're right. I mean, there's a real magnetism to her role, and it's so easy to fall in love with her. And you can see why Ryan just falls head over heels for her in this attitude that she has. It's just like, it's this, she's talking about, the Mile High Club and all the cards that they have and rental car companies, and she speaks his language. I mean, she is, as she says, she is him with a vagina. I mean, it's played so well. She's so winning in this film. I mean, going to comparisons, I feel like you'd almost have to go to someone like Lauren Bacall opposite Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, boy, you've got to go back, don't you?
Yeah. I really think you do. I can't think of anyone in recent times who really has that energy, that magnetism, and brings it to that level as she does in this film.
It is.
I mean, it's amazing how good she does.
Yeah. Wow. She's not in enough stuff. Especially, I'm reading right now. What does it talk about? The surrealist romantic comedy Henry's Crime with Keanu Reeves. Did that even come out?
I haven't heard of that one before. Is it a 2012 film?
No, it was. They filmed it in 2009. Filming wrapped up in early 2010. I don't know anything about this, but she was in. You know what? She was in Source Code.
And The Departed.
And The Departed. Oh,
yeah.
The Departed.
Yeah.
Great film.
Definitely.
Anyhow, so she needs to be in more stuff. We like her a lot. We're going to do a spin-off show called Actresses We Like. Very short. It's very short. It's just going to be a top 10, and then it'll stop.
And that will be all.
And that will be all. So the movie did it came to critical acclaim. It did well in the box office
I mean, it cost $30 million to make the film, and domestically it made about almost $84 million. Internationally, almost about $83 million. So worldwide, it made almost $167 million. And then there's all the DVD sales and everything. I mean, it's definitely made a pretty penny.
We didn't really talk about Bateman.
We didn't. He's great. He was obviously a find from the previous Jason Reitman film, Juno. And I really liked him in Juno. I thought he did a great job. And Jason obviously liked him and brought him on for this. I don't think, gosh, I'm trying to remember Young Adult. I don't think Jason Reitman ended up in Young Adult. J.K. Simmons, Jason Reitman has said J.K. Simmons is kind of his good luck charm, and he's been in all of his films so far. But I don't think I can think of anyone else who's kind of been in all of them. But yeah, I mean, Jason Bateman's just fantastic. And it's such a different role for him, isn't it?
It is. Well, I wonder. It's a very different role played in a very sort of familiar way. What I love so much about Jason Bateman is I think he has capitalized on what makes him attractive, right, as an actor, and as a performance. And I think what he brings to this is sort of the evil Michael Bluth.
Right.
His character on Arrested Development, which ranks as in certainly the top 3 of my favorite television shows of all time.
Sure, definitely.
He's and I really like him for being that sort of the restorative, the salve on the Bluth family, and here he's everything that is not that, and yet that character is still in there. With a beard, and not a great one.
No, it's not. And an office full of store-bought sports memorabilia.
Yes. So
it's like all of those, autographed balls and autographed pictures that you can just buy at
that you could buy in series number 250,000 out of 10 million.
Right.
It's a fantastic performance, and I think he does a great job representing the cookie cutter nature of what so many of us think of as corporate America.
Yeah, it's very easy for him to deliver lines at the beginning when he's talking to his team about how the economy's in a rut, the motor industry is falling apart, all these industries, the housing industry's in ruins. It's our time.
Yeah. This is our time. Oh boy, it's it's a terrific performance, and it's easy not to talk about him, but he plays a foil in this film that really allows the others to work as well as they do.
Yeah, he definitely does.
Good movie. I'm glad we talked about this movie. This is kind of one of the unsung films. It's in so many ways it's kind of a small film, but there's a lot going on in this movie.
Yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's to me this is an example of what a solid script and film can be. It's just how well the characters are written, how well they all are integrated into the story, how well they interact with each other, how you're seeing the story from so many different perspectives, and they all are tied into the same message and same theme, and it really brings home a solid sense that by the time you're done watching this film, and this I think is exactly what we were talking about, as tragic as the story is for Ryan Bingham, we also feel some hope because we've been listening to all these people who've been fired, and we're getting a sense as to how they have found a change, and we're seeing Natalie and how she's decided to make this change in her life and quit the company and go follow what her dream had been. And it's just a beautiful film. It really is beautiful. And I know so many people watch this and go, God, that was a real downer. Because I mean, it's about the economy, it's getting fired, all this stuff, but
no, I think I think I've even changed my tune on this film in some way, just in our conversation. I mean, I as much as I've always loved this movie since the first time I saw it, I don't think I appreciated the redemption story that is insinuated in the last act, as well as through talking through it here. I think there is a lot of redemption to be seen in this movie now, and I think that's a very powerful statement. The other thing you just said that I don't think we can say too lightly is that this movie is a great one as an example of a film with intention. It feels so much that Jason Reitman had gotten from the Kirn book, at least, an interpretation of what he wanted to say about these concepts of loyalty and betrayal, and every character's arc supports that message, that intention of we're going to deal with loyalty and betrayal, and we're going to deal with it on a very deeply personal level. We're going to deal with it in our romantic relationships. We're going to deal with it in the relationships we have with our businesses. We're going to deal with loyalty and betrayal, full stop. And this movie does it. There is nothing in here that complicates that message and that sort of singular focus through these multiple plot threads or dramatic threads. And I think that adds to the strength of the film and the strength of the structure of the storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. It's a beautiful story. It really is.
Well done, Jason.
2 thumbs up.
All right. Well, this was good. What else do we have anything else to add? Are we done?
Just one last little bit of trivia. If you stay through the credits, there's a song that comes on, and it's actually on the soundtrack as well, called Up in the Air, written by a guy named Kevin Rennick, who had never met Jason Reitman, was not really anybody who was out there, but he had recently been fired from his job, and he had heard that Jason Reitman was making this movie. So he wrote this song, and he recorded it on like a tape or something, and he has an introduction to Jason Reitman at the beginning of the recording, saying, "Jason, this is Kevin Rennick. I recently lost my job. I wrote this song. You're welcome to use it if you want to." And he sent it to Jason, and Jason thought it was somehow he actually did get into his hands, and he thought it was such a great song and a great representation of the story that he put it in the credits, and it's on the soundtrack. And that just is one more little thing that just makes all of this feel so connected to the realities of everything going on in the world. And it's a great little song, so definitely check it out on the soundtrack if you don't have it, or stay through the end of the credits.
What just before we pass, what was the best line in the movie?
Oh my goodness, there's a lot.
Well, you know that quote. I mean, Jason Reitman said that his dad, Ivan Reitman, came up with the best line in the movie. He says, "You know that line? He came up with the best line in the movie. You know that line you applauded? My dad wrote that line." What was that line?
I don't know.
I honestly don't remember applauding a line.
I don't remember. I don't know. That must have been at one of the screenings or something.
I'll bet it was J.K. Simmons. I'm sure it was a J.K. Simmons line.
His lines aren't that strong. I think it has to be a George Clooney line.
Or a Vera Farmiga line.
Oh, Vera. She had just had a baby like right before this, and I think they had to bring in a double for her nude scenes because she had literally like just delivered a baby.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Good film. All right, I'm officially done. If anybody who comes up with the best line in the movie, please tweet us. Because I'd like to know it.
We want to know.
I'd like to know the Ivan Reitman line from Up in the Air. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Good talk. We'll catch you next week. Yeah.
Indeed, you will.
Here at The Next Reel, we've been passionately discussing movies week after week since 2011. That's a lot of movies and a lot of conversation.
Sure is, Pete. And to be honest, it's a lot of work too. But it's work that we love. If you have been enjoying our show, we'd like to remind you that there are ways to support us, even if you're not able to become a member just yet. You might have heard us talk about our new watch page, where we've listed every movie that we've talked about, paired with Amazon or Apple links to rent or buy the movie.
Now we'd like to introduce you to our originals page. Let's take a trip down memory lane, Andy. Do you remember what the first film we discussed on The Next Reel was that was an adaptation?
Well, let's see. It wasn't obviously our Indiana Jones series, because those were all original. Then we did Charlie Kaufman. Oh, of course. It was adaptation from Susan Orlean's Orchid Thief.
Exactly. We have covered quite a few adaptations over the years, and now we're providing a way for our listeners to delve into the original source material.
That's right. Just head over to thenextreel.com/originals, and you can see the list of all the adaptations that we have discussed.
From our David Fincher series, featuring The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Social Network, Zodiac, Benjamin Button, and Fight Club,
to our Paranoia trilogy with The Parallax View and All the President's Men, we have covered a variety of adaptations.
Those were some great discussions, especially Fight Club. And let's not forget our baseball series with The Natural and Field of Dreams, adapted from Shoeless Joe.
And Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking. So many memorable conversations.
Absolutely. And you know what's exciting? Each purchase you make through our links doesn't cost you any extra, but a percentage goes to support The Next Reel and our family of shows.
You can support us while diving deeper into these fantastic stories, whether it's the paper, audiobook, or Kindle version.
We've also included plays and movies. If they were the source, we've put it on there.
So what are you waiting for? Head to thenextreel.com/originals, support The Next Reel, and get your next great read today.
I'm off to reread Fight Club. Now, where did I put my Kindle?